Hey folks, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today, as it says on the title, CIVIVI Praxis. That's the knife that we're looking at today. Flipper, Chinese knife. This is the budget line from the WE company. 9C or 18 MOV stainless steel, which I like on a budget knife. And a knife that's just within the budget rating of my channel, and that's under $50 US. And what we have is, I think this is one of the better CIVIVI knives. Now, this is the third knife that they came out with, but they've got a good number of designs, and this is their third one. And so the Praxis is number 3. So C803 is the model name, followed by a letter A, B, or C, depending on what color G10 you're going to get. And it comes with black, a sand tan type color, so a light, very light brown. And it comes in an OD green. We've got a nice gold anodized, it's not really gold, but gold color anodized liners, deep carry left and right pocket clip. And so if you're interested in a knife that looks like this and has those kinds of features, you'll want to stick around for the full review. And it's coming at you right now. Okay, so here we go. What we've got is a drop point blade with a swedge. You can clearly see that there. So it's non-sharpened at the back. You've actually got a fairly wide edge to it. It just comes more fine when you get within the last ½ inch of the tip. We've got a high flat grind. I'm going to call this a full flat grind because you've got quite a distance here that it's flat, but it's not technically a full flat grind. We've got a front sharpness choil here. Well, actually, we've got a front finger choil here. The finger fits in there quite easily. We've got a little bit of a ramp back here, slightly upswept with some jimping on it. We've got a bit of a drop on the back of the handle, back spacer, and it fits in the hand fairly well. We've got screws that sit down within the G10. You can just barely feel them when you rub your finger over it. The back spacer here has an exposed lanyard hole, which I really like this style of lanyard hole. And we'll do the close-ups a little bit later. We've got holes right here. Well, that's for the pocket clip. So it's a right and left pocket clip. And as you can see, it's a deep carry pocket clip. Very deep, just a little bit of the knife sticking out. We've got a fixed, not free spinning pivot pin, T8 screws. All the body screws here are T8. The pocket clip screws are T6. Very, very comfortable in hand. I do like this second choil here. They could have easily made it without that, but I do like that extra little bit. The flipper tab has got some fine jimping on the top here. I'll give you a close-up of that in a little while. It works well for, light switch method. I'm going to be pulling close to straight back, and that knife blade flies out, no problem at all. And you can push back on just a slight angle, but mostly downward, and that works as well. Very comfortable in hand, in either hand. Okay, let's take a look at the tip of this blade. So it's a drop point, so it's coming down. It's got a fairly big swedge that sort of disappears up here, comes across, and terminates right at the tip there. And then you've got your high flat grind, I'm calling it a full flat grind, coming across, and it comes to the tip as well. That makes this a very puncture-friendly tip of this knife. It's a little bit thin at the tip, but it's still quite strong, fairly strong. And then we've got the cutting edge, which is a lot of belly, almost all the way to the end. There's a very short section here, maybe ½ an inch long, that I would consider a flat section on the blade. But it's pretty much all belly, which belly is good for slicing action and, of course, for piercing action as well. And so this blade is a very good compromise between a puncture type blade and a slicing type blade. And in my tests, it works very, very well for both of those kinds of things. Now, moving down along the blade, you see the ricasso here. That's the flat section. It comes up and stays flat all the way up to there, about 1/3 of the way down the knife. And it's done very well. But even up here, just this short section here, they did, chamfer off the edge of the blade. Same thing on the thumb ramp right here with the jimping on it. And so it's a very, very comfortable knife with no sharp spots except for where you want them. Looking at the front choil here, now that is fairly thin here, but generally your finger is pulling backwards a bit when you're using this choil, and the back here is a nice wide flat. Again, there's a chamfered edge there. And so when you put your finger in that hole and you're pulling back, sort of like as if this was a trigger, you're pulling this way a bit, it feels very secure. This little thin spot up here doesn't seem to be bothersome at all. I've not nicked myself with this cutting edge at all. And it's just very, very comfortable in hand that way. It's a fairly well ground blade, and I'll talk about that in more detail when I go through the measurements, the final grind that they did on it. And the final grind is almost always done by hand in most companies, especially on budget knives. And now to the handle, you've got your CIVIVI logo right there. Coming back, we've got these body screws. Just like WE knives, if the CIVIVI knives tend to have their own hardware made in-house, these screws are nice and deep. They're done to very high tolerances. You put your screwdriver in there, there's very little play, and your screwdriver bites in very, very well. And so I've taken this knife apart a couple times, and it just works beautifully to get in there. No problems at all. Even the screws here on the pocket clip, which I think are probably mass produced and they're purchased, but they're done quite well. I didn't have any problems at all with getting those feeling like they're going to strip at all or anything. They do use some thread locker on these screws, but it wasn't a problem taking this knife apart by hand, so that's a good thing. The pivot screw here is done just as well. A nice deep recess there for the Torx head on the screw, and it just works very, very well. So coming to the end of the handle, we've got that spacer that pops out on the end there for the lanyard hole. Now, I'm not one that uses much for lanyard holes. I just don't use lanyards very often at all on folding knives. But there you go. If you do, this one's done as close to perfectly as I've seen, because it's recessed in, so when you've got your paracord in here, it doesn't stick out proud past the sides of the knife handle, and so that's a very good thing. But the cutaway on the handle there doesn't affect the grip at all in the hand either. So it's a very well done lanyard hole. I like that tremendously. The pocket clip is done very well. I like deep carry pocket clips for a number of reasons, but one, they're very deep carry, and for another thing, they tend to be very comfortable in hand as well. We've got a fold over edge right here, and so it just grabs onto the material of your pocket and guides it in underneath that clip. The clip spring is good and strong. You can hear that power in that spring. And, it's got some holes cut in there, and that's for no other reason than because they wanted to, for the aesthetic. And these holes here, of course, access to the screw heads. The liners are rounded over, softened. They feel very nice to the touch. And that beautiful anodization is consistent throughout. I didn't see any chips anywhere. And throughout my use of this knife already, in and out of pockets, quite a lot. And I've carried this thing quite a bit. It hasn't chipped at all anywhere, and it's just very, very functional. The jimping here on the liner release, you can see that jimping in there, and it just is a very good grip without being, abrasive. Exactly where I like a knife to lock up. So there's a lot of room for wear of this liner arm going across, but it's engaged fully. That's a great thing. So now let's take this knife apart so you can see that inside a little bit better and all the skeletonizing that they have. And I'm just going to show you still pictures. So you saw in there, it's got a lot of skeletonizing in there, but even on the inside, everything's smooth. There's no rough edges. Now it's time to go get that pants pocket and show you the pocket clip look. Like I said, that top there just sort of catches right over the pants, guides it in, and it goes all the way in very easily. Of course, it catches just a tiny bit on those screws because those screws are quite proud, but it's very easy to get past those. And it's even easier to get past those when you're actually wearing your pants and not having them, nailed onto a wooden block. Now it's time to put the knife down and do all of the dimensions. Now, I still can't find that little measuring tape that I use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little screwdriver here as the symbol that I'm doing my measurements. When that disappears, I'm done talking about the measurements in case you want to skip past these. Now, the specs, the stuff about this, 9CR18 MOV stainless steel. Rockwell hardness of the stuff is usually around 59, give or take a tiny bit, and CIVIVI does a great job with a heat treat on this, and it works very, very well in terms of edge retention. I've had a lot of experience with this steel in the last year, and I'm liking it more and more all the time. It does take an edge quite well. It keeps an edge quite well, and those are the two main things that I look at. Now, the measurements. The weight on this knife, 125 grams, 4.40 ounces. The next measurement is how sharp do they make this edge at the factory? 155. Now that is quite sharp. Now for the measurements. The cutting edge, so tip to the front of the sharpener finger choil, I should say, 8.47 centimeters, which is 3.34 inches. The blade length, so the tip to the closest spot on the G10, is 9.36 centimeters, which is 3.69 inches. The blade thickness is 2.99 millimeters. So when they were sanding it, it took off a little bit. It was 3 millimeter stock to start with, I'm sure. That's 0.1175 in the inches. The blade depth, this measurement right here, and I go an inch up from the start of the cutting edge right there, 3.2 centimeters, 1.26 inches. The thickness of the edge right behind the grind is 0.42 millimeters, which is 0.0165 inches. Now that's part of the reason that helps it get a good edge sharpness score. It's nice and thin. The next thing that really helps is the grind angle. The grind angle on this, the working side here, 18.5 degrees. This side here, 16.6 degrees. Most EDC kind of knives are around 20 degrees per side, so that's 40 degrees inclusive. This guy being 18.5 and 16.6 is, a good 5 degrees less, so roughly 35 degrees. And that helps it go through things, and that's why it's got a lower number of 155 instead of something closer to 200. Now let's go to the handle. The handle length here is 11.99 centimeters, so 12 centimeters, 4.72 inches. The grip area between my thumbs, 9.8 centimeters, 3.86 inches. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip, is 1.29 centimeters. That's just over half an inch. And then the handle depth, its biggest right here, 2.74 centimeters, which is 1.08 inches. And when the knife is closed, you measure it there, which is the widest spot, 3.68 centimeters, which is 1.45 inches, which means being less than an inch and a half, it doesn't occupy too much space in the pocket. It slides in easily. There's no sharp edges for it to catch, except for, you've got the flipper tab sticking out a little bit further, but it's a nicely rounded flipper tab, and so it works very well. And the total length of the knife from the tip to the end of the handle when the blade is deployed, 22.4 centimeters, which is 8.82 inches. So a little bit less than 9-inch knife. This is getting onto the bigger side of most folding knives, but it's not big by any means. It's a good size knife. The balance point is the last thing to do on the measurements here. And let me get the spot there. There you go. It's right there, which is not bad at all. Now, I don't understand why today the light is doing weird things, but there you go. good knife. The measurements are great. It looks great. It feels great. In fact, I think this is one of the better knives that I've reviewed this year. Well, definitely it's one of the better knives that I've reviewed this year. And I think 2019 has been my best year so far. I'm really, really liking the stuff that I'm reviewing. This is a 2018 knife, but I just got it in this year. And so I'm reviewing it now, and I really, really like this an awful lot. It's a very good choice for an EDC because it can do almost any task you want it to do. Of course, there's no such thing as a knife that does everything for everybody all the time. But this knife has a lot of compromises that are not really compromises. They're optimizations that really suit so many different tasks. It's a great slicing knife. And so if you needed to take this with you to do some food prep while you're camping, or maybe you're hiking for a day or two, or just an afternoon, and you need a knife with you to take care of some chores, everything from cutting cordage to cutting up food, it's a good knife. If a rabid dog shows up, it's also a knife that you can protect yourself with as well. Now, there's one thing that I forgot to mention is when you buy this knife, it comes in this nice little box, but it comes inside this little pouch. Now, some of these things might seem like gimmicky stuff to some people, but other people really like these touches. You've got a microfiber cloth, very useful, but you've also got a nice pouch. It's got a soft interior, and let's see if I can get the light hitting this just right so you can see it. There you go. And it's got a decent quality zipper here. Let's see, I don't think this is a YYC zipper. No, it's not, but it's a relatively decent zipper. And you even got a little tab here so that, it can be clipped onto something and carried as well. And it fits the knife. The knife fits in there just fine. No problem at all. So you get all of these things included in the price when you buy this knife. Before I get to the pros and cons and my general feeling about this knife, what is the price? Well, at White Mountain Knives, this thing is $47.65, and that's my preferred place to get these knives because White Mountain Knives ships to Canada, and every shipment that I've had from them, I don't send it to Nebraska first. I've had them ship it directly to me, and it gets through no problem because White Mountain Knives is a smaller store, and they're not on the radar so far, I guess. And so there's no problem importing these. Of course, that's not a guarantee. That's just my anecdotal evidence for myself. So I like these, and I like getting them from White Mountain Knives. And you can get a discount if you use my discount code CCE at checkout, and you get that discount of 10% off anything in their store. So $47.65 US. In Canadian dollars, it's about $85.42. In British pounds, it's in euros, and it's from a different supplier, of course, in Europe. I found this at $49.95. Now, the pros and the cons and the overall feeling that I get of this knife, if you haven't noticed, my overall feeling is awesome. This is one of my favorite knives of the year. Currently, it's definitely within my top 3, and being the end of April, we're more than a quarter way through this. January, February, March, April. Yeah, we're a third of the way through this year already. And this is in my top 3, most definitely within my top 3. I'm really, really enjoying this knife. I don't think I'm going to be having this knife on the list that Patreon supporters can win this month at the end of the month, which is at the end of this week. But, there will be some really good stuff that the Patreon winners, the Patreon supporter can choose from. I just like this thing so much, I think I need to keep it. And hopefully you won't be upset with that at all, because if you had this knife, you'd want to keep it as well. It's got very good action. It's a very good slicing knife. It's a decent and more than passable knife for piercing into things. Like if you're going into some harder fruit like a watermelon or a gourd or something, you tend to have to pierce first if you don't want it to slide off. It's, got good capability that way. 9CR18's got good corrosion resistance and decent edge retention. And the look on this knife is quite good I do like stonewash better, but this satin finish is beautiful. The hand feel is awesome. I love these two choils right here. The pocket clip is made just as a pocket clip should be. Your lanyard retention spot is very good. The colorization looks nice. I really like the tan one as well. That light color, sandy color hand G10 is beautiful. You've got a lot of good choices here. The skeletonization helps this thing be nice and light. Like I said, 4.4 ounces for a knife that's almost 9 inches. That's a very good thing. The grip on this G10 is perfect, and the grip of the shape is excellent. There's just enough jimping to make it, give you a better sense of, holding the knife securely, and not so much that it's a problem, especially the jimping here on the liner release arm. Beautiful stuff here. What don't I like about this knife? I'm sorry, guys. I haven't found anything that I dislike about this knife. Could it use something like, ceramic ball bearings? Yeah, but no, to me, that is actually a gimmick, and stainless steel ball bearings work just fine, especially for budget knives. Could it use, a better flipper? I don't know, maybe, but this flipper is small enough not to be a problem, big enough to be very useful. The forward choil, sometimes I love forward choils, sometimes I hate forward choils. This one's done very well. It's big enough that it doesn't need any modifications for a guy with big hands, and yet it's small enough to be adequate and useful for most people. And Bandit's trying to get my attention here. So there's nothing that I really dislike about this knife. The pivot pin locking, that's a very good thing. The fact that they use thread lockers, not a problem because they gave us very good quality screws. I could just go on and on and on, repeating the same things that I've said about this thing. It's a very good choice. This is the Praxis by CIVIVI, which is, I keep on wanting to say the wrong name. It's We Knives that has the CIVIVI line. Thanks for watching my video, guys. You guys are awesome, guys and gals. And if you're looking for a very good EDC style knife that's good at almost everything, not bad at any one thing, and is more than reasonable at a lot of things, think about the Praxis. Thanks for watching, liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Remember, guys, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.